Good morning, Hope. Good morning, Hope. Can you hear me?
Hi, Beth.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can. Let me,
Super.
I just got my new computer set up last night. I don't know if you had heard, my house got struck by lightning last week. And
Oh my
so
goodness.
it just blew everything. And so the office is really good about sending us equipment. And so like 5 boxes of stuff arrived yesterday. So I started setting everything up. And then, so right now I am trying to.
Bless your heart. Wow. Well, did your house catch fire? Or...
No, that's a good thing. I mean, we have our chimney, it hit our chimney, and it's a chimney that goes to an external fireplace. So lots of good things as a result of, well, we're fortunate because external chimney doesn't have a metal liner. I didn't know this. Interior is required to have a metal liner, but exterior is not. And so as a result, it did not become like this giant conductor and then spread throughout the house. But we do have a lot of stuff that's out. I mean, it's still knocked out regardless, So.
Bless your heart. I did not know that. Goodness.
I know it's, if it's not one thing, we said, okay, we survived COVID, now snowvid, and then now lightning strike, right?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad you didn't lose your whole house. That's a good thing.
Yes. Okay. Does everything look lined up? Okay, everything doesn't look lined up in the back for me. I'm trying to. Good morning. Morning.
Morning, everyone. Thanks to the team for helping me get all the information together, from bios to photos and the breakout sessions. It definitely takes a team to get this done.
Well, we're glad to be able to do it. Did we get the information? I haven't checked on each of the breakout rooms, or are you going to just kind of send us to the breakout room?
So I've got you and Christine in one room, and then Paola and Jacob in the other room. I've already got you pre-assigned, and I'll manually send the attendees to the breakout rooms. Because I don't know yet who will actually show up for the one-on-ones. And just so we can all be jealous, I want everyone to know that Doug is joining us. It's bright and early on the West Coast where he is. I can't remember, Doug, is it Santa Barbara or San Diego? Either of which is fabulous.
Santa Barbara.
Oh, even worse.
And it looks like you are sitting outside.
I am, because it is 7 or 6:50 in the morning here, so the family's still asleep.
Oh, well, it's beautiful over there from what I could tell.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's my first vacation since July of 2019.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
That's great. Yet here you are, bright and early.
It's okay.
I know.
I got coffee.
Well,
thank you for joining us on your vacation. Really appreciate that.
Not a problem.
Jacob, I have a quick question. We've also got you all scheduled for the 27th of June. Do we have any thoughts on what the subject matter is on that? If not, I thought we might ask people to perhaps put some suggestions in chat. Or would you
Sure.
rather take the lead on that?
Well, so thank you. I actually had a conversation with Taylor, our regional outreach officer, I think maybe yesterday or 2 days ago about this topic. And I believe the topic that people might be interested in might be a copyright. I'm not, hopefully I'm not mixing up different events and whatnot. So we do have a spokesperson for that topic.
Okay.
So I'm on a sort of a, at this time, I would say standby, but I would probably urge you to continue the conversation with Taylor and just kind of fine tune what the topic might be. More than happy to help out any way possible. So just, yeah, just tell me what I need to do.
Okay, so I was, as part of introducing Christine and Hope this morning, I wanted to say something about how we plan to be working with you all on a regular basis, and then say that you're already scheduled for June 27th. And then I can say the topic most likely will be on copyright. Does that sound fair enough?
I think so. Yeah.
Another option, and I don't know what day this is, but one of the things that I usually present on is for small entrepreneurs is talking about your IP strategy. And
I think we lost
about, you know, how IP affects, realize that it affects your employment of your licenses. Oh, can you guys not hear me? Can you hear me?
We lost.
We heard you towards the end.
You heard me towards the end?
Started with the IP strategy, and then we missed about a minute or so, and then you came back.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, you know, okay, am I going in and out?
No,
Yes,
you're
you
on.
are, and we lost your video.
Yeah, now we can't see you.
Oh, you know, okay, let me.
Okay, I'm wondering, Beth, is it okay if I try to share my screen while Hope blogging?
I was just getting ready to ask you if we wanted to test that.
Okay, let me see if I can share my
Everyone has the
screen.
ability to do it, so you should be able to.
Okay, and now you should see yourself on my screen. And now you should see some slides. Do you see
Yep.
slides?
I do.
Perfect. Now let me see if I can click through these slides. Okay, yeah, I can't click it won't let me. Oh no, there we go. There we go. Okay. Sorry, it was a little stuck.
You were on the last page.
Oh, that's why I couldn't.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries.
Which looks a lot like the first page.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Okay, perfect. Great. I can click my slides. I can turn them if Hope needs. Excellent. Thank you. Okay,
Sure.
I'm going to stop sharing, but I just wanted to make sure I was able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have your deck set up and ready to go if I need to share.
Okay, so if for some reason we blip out, which could happen, then okay, great. All right, and I am at this point, I'm no longer sharing. You're not seeing my screen anymore?
Nope.
Okay, great. All right, then I think we're set.
Okay, super. And I see we've already got folks logging in. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning. Morning, Chris. Morning, Monica. You guys must have already had your coffee and you're ready to go.
They've been on a couple meetings.
Oh my.
Yep.
So where are you, Doug?
Yeah.
I am in Santa Barbara, California. So on vacation. I was mentioning this is the first vacation I've taken since July of 19.
Waited a long time, huh?
Yes.
Good for you.
And yet he is talking to us at 7:00 a.m. We appreciate it. What a trooper.
Not too bad. Stay on Texas time, and the hard part is going back home on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. Hope we can see you again. Can you hear us? Okay, we can't hear her.
Okay. Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yes,
Okay. All right.
and we can see you.
Good. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, do you want me to continue on the topic real quick or?
Sure, we only heard bits and pieces.
Okay, one of the options that we could talk about is some sort of licensing IP and IP strategy topic if we want to do that, because a lot of times people don't realize as an organization how much IP will affect you. It's as simple as whatever your software licenses that for anything that you are kind of procuring for your company, there's always IP provisions in there, your employment agreements, any of your assets actually that you're pretty much getting. I mean, there's always IP provisions when you hire someone, a supplier or anything else, they also have IP provisions. So anyways, it's just something to be aware of and to bring to your to everyone's attention. Plus, if you do procure IP, which is one of the most important things, you end up with assets. And it's something that you can sell and license even if your company goes kaput at the end of the day. So that's an idea that we can talk about as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Hope, a little FYI, I'm able to share my slides. We practiced that while you were logging back in. And so if you are not, then I can flip slides for you. And we also have Beth as a backup. So.
Okay. I would suggest one of y'all go ahead and do it, just because now that especially since I'm on Wi-Fi, I think that would be better.
Okay. So I'll just flip them when you say.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
So let's give everyone a few more minutes and we'll get started closer to 9:05. Allow time for everyone to get another cup of coffee so everyone's ready to go to listen to all this great information we're going to get from y'all.
I think another cup of coffee idea is great. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Can you get me one too while you're up?
I could, but I don't know that it would help.
Well, Christine, aren't you all the way in Virginia?
I am. So it's an hour later for me. I'm really doing fine.
Okay.
So,
You've already had enough coffee.
yep, this is really prime time for me, 10 in the morning.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
So for all of our participants, we're not going to do individual introductions today. We have a lot of attendees and we have 2 speakers and a lot of content. But please, we do want this to be a networking opportunity. So please do put your contact information in chat so everyone has it. But we will not be doing our individual introductions.
Morning, Shyla. Did I see that you are speaking at the drawing board coming up soon?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
That's great. That's great. We'll have to get it on the IQ website for the calendar.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm excited about it.
Hope, it's good to see you. Been a long time.
Hi, Bill. How are you? It is good to see you.
It is. It's good to be seen.
Well, I am really excited. Hopefully that we'll be rolling out of this fairly soon. At least there's light at the end of the tunnel as I'm seeing a number of things coming through in person. Is Tech Titans, are they doing their awards gala in person this year? Are y'all planning on doing it this year that way?
So we're going to do a hybrid awards event on October the 21st. We're going to plan for about 300 to 400 in attendance. We won't be doing a sit-down dinner, but we will be doing a kind of a glorified cocktail reception and then the award ceremony. And then we're going to live stream the award ceremony. Last year we did all virtual, of course, but our audiences are just demanding to get back together in person. We had one of our first ones, our kind of super networkers that are mainly small business people who, kind of refer business to one another. They met in person on April the 7th. They normally have about 20 people show up. They had double show up. I mean, people,
wow.
My executive committee met in person on Friday of last week. We're all vaccinated, and when they enter, we're still taking temperatures when they enter the building. You still have to wear a mask until you sit down. All those kind of protocols in effect, but people are just, I mean, I love seeing you. I love seeing everybody else here, but I want to see you in person.
Yes. As they say, we want to press palms.
Yeah. How about just a plain old hug? Yeah.
I've been referring to it as seeing people in 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
That's a good way of doing it.
Okay, I haven't heard that yet. That was great.
So are your offices open, Hope?
So we're in what we call phase 1 of reopening. So our office is open for employees, but we're still highly encouraging we're highly encouraging telework. And so we do have a few folks who regularly come on site. But right now we're if we have visitors, we have to get Department of Commerce approval, and it's a pretty high level of approval. But I'm hoping that with the goal that Biden set of having everyone vaccinated by May 1st. Now, I mean, in reality, that's probably not going to be the case, but I think it's a good goal because then it gives us the horizon of, okay, now we can start to look forward to possibly opening up.
Yeah, I'm going to say that.
So we will see.
If you haven't booked your summer vacation and it involves travel, you better do it now.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So we've actually booked ourselves to go to Yellowstone over the 4th of July. And so I've got the plans all set. And then we have until June to decide if we're actually going to pull the trigger or not. So I have it all booked. But no, it is super crowded based on what I can tell from airline and hotels and everything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for inviting us.
Beth, Doug, are we going to kick off?
Yes. Doug's going to start us off from sunny Santa Barbara.
Appreciate it, Beth, and thank y'all. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning, and welcome to the IQ Brew, and also happy Earth Day. So like to see some new faces. Great to see some folks coming back virtually here to Richardson, Texas. But I really appreciate it. And like you said, this is my first vacation since July of 19. And it was a full flight, and hotels are sold out here. So people are getting back into the groove of traveling. So Very safe protocols. Get out, start enjoying it, and just be safe. I'm Doug McDonald. I'm the City of Richardson Strategic Initiatives Manager. The IQ Brew is actually a partnership between the City of Richardson and the Richardson Chamber of Commerce, which Beth and Bill are a part of, and you're going to hear from Beth in just a little bit. But the IQ Brew really is intended to be kind of the networking educational series featuring short presentations from entrepreneurs, from small businesses, and from industry experts. I'm bringing folks here like the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, really great benefit for our small businesses to be able to get the information they need to be successful. This is also intended to be kind of a networking and educational series. So please use the chat. I know we're going to be short on time on having everyone to go around and do introductions, but use the chat feature. Please connect with your fellow attendees because this is the great ecosystem that we're building. This will be very successful and very helpful for all of our small businesses. This is also one of the many initiatives that are going on right now with the Richardson Innovation Quarter. We're going to have a stakeholders meeting coming up next month. You're going to get a lot of information about what's been going on these past few months. But this is one piece of that. And this is really kind of, again, to make those critical connections that are needed for all of our startups and all of our small businesses to grow and to thrive here in Richardson. If you have any topics you want to hear about in the future, or if you want to be a speaker for the IQ Brew, either reach out to me or Beth. I'll put our contact information in the chat. Or there is actually a feature now on our website, richardsoniq.com. If you go to presentations, that you can actually submit your own information, and that gets forwarded to Beth and me. So with that, Beth, I'm going to turn it over to you. Really appreciate everyone's attendance and excited to see the presentation.
Yeah, thanks so much, Doug. And particular thanks for joining us so early from such a beautiful location. Makes me very envious looking at your background.
Yeah, it's not virtual background.
Yeah. Very nice, very nice. Well, as Doug said, thanks again, everyone, for joining. Always great to see some new faces and always our friends who have been with us from the very beginning. We do hope to, in the future, bring these, move them from virtual to in-person. So hopefully before the end of the year, we can actually shake hands or hugs, whatever we're comfortable with. So be looking for more information on that. So we are thrilled today to have speakers from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. And as an FYI, we've had them speak to us in the past, and we're going to have them again on May 27th. So this is a group that has loads and loads of expertise that is relevant to many of you as you start to grow your business or think about starting a business, and you entrepreneurs. So we will be having their experts speak to us on a regular basis. So today we're thrilled to have Hope Shimabuku, who's the director of the Texas Regional United States Patent and Trademark Office. As the director, she carries out the strategic direction of the Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property and the director of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. She's been with the USPTO, or she brings to the USPTO 2 decades of experience as an engineer and intellectual property attorney. Most recently, she was part of the Office of General Counsel at Xerox, serving as Vice President and Corporate Counsel responsible for all intellectual property matters for Xerox. She received her BS in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Texas at Austin. If you can see my background, I'm particularly fond of the University of Texas at Austin. And she graduated cum laude with a JD from SMU, which would make my husband very happy. My background in my home office has SMU Mustangs. She is a native Texan, born and raised in Houston, and currently lives in Flower Mound. Hope is joined today by her colleague, Christine Nelson, who, as I mentioned earlier, is joining us from Fairfax, Virginia. But she's the on-site detailee in outreach for the Texas Regional Office. Christine started her career at the USPTO as an examiner in 2010 and has worked in mechanical arts, primarily in medical implants. Prior to her career with the USPTO, she was in private practice in Westminster, Colorado, focusing on family healthcare and nutritional counseling. And as I mentioned, she's joining us from Virginia. So we'll go ahead and take it away, both of you. I believe we're starting with Hope. Or
Christine.
Christine.
Actually,
okay.
I'm going to kick it off. So
Thanks so
let
much.
me get my slides sharing here. So that's the first step. Okay, so I think we're set. So thank you so much, Beth, for that introduction. We are just so excited to be here with you today. And as Beth said, I am working at this point with the Texas Regional Office in outreach, but I'm also a patent examiner. And my background is in medical implants. However, today we are not talking to you about patents. We're here to talk about trademarks. So for today's discussion, we're going to kick it off by talking about what is a trademark and the definition of a trademark and why there are advantages to having it registered federally. And then Hope's going to talk with you about filing considerations, the trademark examination process, and how to maintain your trademark. And then I'll close with tips and helpful USPTO resources. So what is a trademark? That's where we need to start when we're doing a trademark presentation. So a trademark is any word, slogan, symbol, design, or combination of these that identifies your good or your service. So really a trademark is a source identifier. It lets you know that when you see that word, slogan, symbol, or design or combination, you know what you're going to get. So I have already seen 2 Starbucks cups just as we've been on video chatting this morning. I've seen 2 Starbucks cups lifted, and that lets me know that there is coffee inside there when I see that Starbucks logo. So that is the essence of a trademark. It's a source identifier. Okay, so with that source identifier, we see a few symbols out in the world. And I'm going to start by talking about the R with the circle around it. That is the federally registered trademark symbol. The other symbol that you'll see is the TM. Now, anyone can use a TM, even if your trademark is not registered federally. And with TM, it can be considered a common law trademark. So let's talk a little bit more about what a common law trademark is. A common law trademark is a trademark that's not been registered federally, but your common law trademark exists automatically as soon as you start using a trademark for business. So for example, here in Fairfax, Virginia, if I decided to open up a business, and I'm going to call it Christine's Cookies, and I am going to link my Christine's Cookies with a trademark that is a cookie made in the shape of a C. So locally in my area in Fairfax, everyone immediately is going to recognize that Christine's Cookies are the cookies shaped like a C. However, that is not going to provide protection for me nationally. So that's only going to provide protection for me in my area where people recognize it. So your rights are limited to your geographic area based on your use in that area. Okay, moving along. So that's a common law trademark. So now let's go through some examples of trademarks. We said that trademarks can be words like Starbucks, Nike, and Target, or designs. So this is the logo that I saw. Like I said, I think I've spotted it on 2 cups so far this morning. So our Starbucks logo, the Nike swoosh, or the Target bullseye. Those are our more traditional trademarks. They're the ones that we're used to seeing. And we also have non-traditional trademarks. I find these really interesting. So non-traditional trademarks can be colors. So if you see this shade of blue on a box, most of us might get pretty excited and realize that that is Tiffany blue, and what's going to be in that box is going to be a beautiful piece of jewelry. Same thing with UPS brown. If you see that color, you go, oh yeah, I'm getting a package in the mail. Or John Deere green. So again, these are trade identifiers. They help you know exactly what's going to be in that box. Some more non-traditional marks are scents. This is one of my my favorite slides because I did not know that the Verizon store has its own scent. It's a flowery musk scent. And you can best believe that the next time I am in a Verizon store, I am going to be sniffing around trying to find that flowery musk scent. And another fun one is Play-Doh. And the Play-Doh scent is the scent of a sweet, slightly musky vanilla fragrance with slight overtones of cherry combined with the smell of a salted wheat-based dough. So to me, it just smells like childhood. But apparently there is a trademark scent for Play-Doh. Okay, some more non-traditional marks are sounds. So, so the giggle of the Pillsbury Doughboy, or the chime of the NBC Peacock, or the sound of you getting coins as you beat your brother at Mario. Okay, so now we want to know why, if we can have a common law trademark, then why seek federal registration? What are the advantages to registering your trademark federally with the USPTO? So with most things, one of the biggest advantages to registering your trademark is that there are legal implications. So you have the legal presumption of ownership and the right to use your mark. And with that right, you can also enforce the right to use that mark and protect it in federal court. So if you do not have a federal registration, you cannot protect your trademark in federal court. Also, if you are registered federally, it provides public notice because your mark is listed in our USPTO database. So that means if somebody else decides that they want to be Christine's Cookies, and I am federally registered, they could go to that database and see, oh, darn, Christine's Cookies already gone. I have to find another trademark for my product. Your rights with a federally registered trademark are granted throughout the United States and its territories. And that's a nice jumping off point because it serves as a basis for foreign filing in any treaty member countries. So the last advantage that I want to talk about is that if you are federally registered, then it's a means for preventing importation of infringing products through the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. So what that means is that you need to be registered in order for the Customs Department to stop products that are fake or a counterfeit product bearing your trademark from coming into the country. So lots of advantages to registering that that trademark. Okay, we're going to talk about some filing considerations. So in order to file a trademark, you have to go to myuspto.gov, which is found at uspto.gov, and create an account with myuspto.gov. So you're going to hear us talk about uspto.gov a lot. That is your jumping off point for anything that you want to do in patents or trademarks. It's a great resource, tons of information. And then once you go to uspto.gov, you're going to click up here in the right-hand corner and create an account with myuspto. So once you have that account, then you can begin the process of filing for your trademark. So there's also a great resource here, again, that uspto.gov is your starting point. Great FAQs and lots more information on that website. Okay, so also in myuspto.gov, you can see your trademark docket, and there is something called a form finder widget. I just love that word. I don't know about anyone else, but widget. So this widget identifies forms using plain language. So if you're trying to file your application and you're looking for a form, we're the government, we have lots of forms, this will help you to find what you need. We also have moved into modern day times, and the USPTO trademarks has launched an app. So this app is available at the Apple Store and on Google Play, and great way to check the status of your trademark application. Okay, so that's enough from me for now. I'm going to turn it over to Hope, who is going to talk to you about the steps for filing and the processing of trademark applications.
All right, thanks, Christine, and thank you to Beth and Doug for inviting us to join everyone today. A couple things I wanted to mention real quick is that we will be doing Q&A after this, and so if you do have questions, if you wanted to put it in chat, we can address it directly that way. But we will follow up with Q&A. To mention is that we are doing one-on-ones. And I know a few of you signed up for one-on-ones, and so we're looking forward to connecting with you. But we do have a couple of additional slots from a time frame standpoint. So if there's anyone there that wants to speak specifically to us about any of your cases, let me know, or let Beth know, excuse me, and then she can add you to the schedule for our teams to be able to talk to you about it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what happens when you submit an application into our office. As Christine mentioned, there's a couple of different types of trademarks and ways that you can file a trademark. One is you don't even have to file, and you'll get what's called common law rights, but recognizing that common law rights are going to be limited to geographic area, and that's the area in which you're selling your product. You can also file with a state, so some people choose to file only with a particular individual state. So for example, if I only wanted to file within Texas, and I don't think I'm going to be selling my products or going to be expanding or franchising outside of Texas, then I might choose to only file a trademark application within Texas. But if you do think that you're going to go multi-state and or even 3 to 4 states or across the entire United States, that's when you actually come to the USPTO to file for a federal registration. And note that the federal registration is only for the United States. It is not a worldwide registration. Every country has their own registration system, and so if you want to go international, then you'll need to file with them. But if you want to file to cover all of the United States, then you come to us, to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and that will be your federal registration. Okay. So there are 2 types of registrations with our office that you can file for. One's called TEAS Standard, and the other one is TEAS Plus. And I'll go a little bit more into detail what the difference is. But all our applications are only accepted electronically. Last year, we went away from accepting any sort of paper applications, and so now you can only file electronically with our office. Same thing with paying. Believe it or not, it's within the last 5 years, we shut down our little receiving box in which we can accept cash payments. I am sorry, if you wanted to pay for this with your pennies and your nickels and dimes, you can't do that anymore. You do need to set up an account with us in order for you to go ahead and pay and process your applications with us. Okay? So next slide, please, Christine. So there are 2 different types of applications that you can file with us. One is called the TEAS Plus, and the other one is the TEAS Standard. So with the TEAS Plus, what that is that you essentially take the generic list of goods and services. So when you file your application with us, you actually have to select the good and service that you think that you're going to be providing to the public. And once you do that from our standard list, then you can use the TEAS Plus application process. Now, if you are creating a brand new business line, you've created the next AI company, or you've created the next web company or the internet system, and that is not something that is easily fit into one of the standard categories of goods or services, you can actually create your own line of goods and services, and that's what the T's standard is. And so you can go in and just make the description, and you have two options on choosing which direction you want to go. Now, understand that these filing fees are based on each class. Okay, so if you select two types of goods or one good and one service, so for example, in Christine's cookies situations, let's say that you not only sell and the actual cookies itself, but you also sell on the side the wrapping and the paper goods, or you have a recipe book or something else that you are selling in addition to the products that you have or the cookies that you have, then you'll have to pay two separate classes if they fall within two separate classes. So then your filing fee for T's Plus is going to be $450 versus the $225. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, please. So there are a number of different things that you need to make sure that you include when you actually file. And it's really important that you include all of these things because the likelihood of you being able to go back and correct your mistake is not going to be very high. And so there's a couple of other consequences that are associated with that, in which I will go into detail a little bit more. But you need to make sure that not only are you putting the correct owner of the mark and contact information, but you're going to need to include a clear drawing of the mark. So if you remember, like the excuse me, Nike. The Nike symbol, the swoosh symbol, or the Starbucks mermaid, that symbol, we need to have a clear copy of that particular drawing when we actually file with our office. You would not believe how sometimes we would get these drawings and the pixelation is off or we can't see the entire mark. Please make sure that when you are submitting things in that it is clear, because once it gets into our registration, if you are submitting the Starbucks mermaid and we can't see the facial features on that, then that will automatically not be included as part of the mark because the drawing was not clear, okay? So make sure that the features, if there are important features that you want on it, make sure that it is in the right color, that it is clearly something that you want to go ahead and protect. The next piece is the identification of goods or services. This is probably the most important piece of your actual filing. If you don't list all of the goods or services that and clearly identify what they are in your initial filing, then you're not going to probably be able to add that on at a later date. You'll need to file another application in order to get coverage for those particular goods and services. You can take out, but you're not going to be able to add in. Okay, and so sometimes that's a problem if you are comparing registrations on who has the right first. If someone comes in later, files the same mark but for different lines of goods or services, but you happen to be using it in that line of good or services, then they got the registration, and so then you're fighting your common law rights against the actual registration. And remember, common law rights are limited by geographic scope, right? So you're going to have those types of arguments, and it's much harder to prove at the end of the day. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, please, Christine. Okay, so a couple other requirements. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I'm actually, we'll be able to share these slides with you, but I'm going to move on to the next slide. As I mentioned, the application, you have to have the list of goods or services. You can't submit an application without actually actually identifying a particular good or service. We actually break them up. So the typical classes are of goods are within classes 1 through 34, and then services are 35 through 45. And so those are all found on our goods and services ID manual, and that you can find that at uspto.gov, and the link is right there. And so moving on to the next slide, please. So when you are identifying your goods and services, make sure that you are very specific and you are clearly identifying exactly what you're trying to cover, because our goods and services, they tend to be fairly generic. And because it is a source identifier, your trademark is a source identifier of who is actually going to be providing that particular goods and services. You also need to be very specific on what you are going to be providing. So for example, if you are providing electronic devices, and specifically, you're going to be providing a tablet computer versus any other electronic device like a television set or a monitor or anything else, then you need to specifically list that out. Okay. And so same thing with a particular service. If you are providing business services and you're providing administrative services as opposed to computer services or any other types of services, being in order for you to be able to identify what type of thing that you are actually going to be providing for us. Okay, next slide, please. So there are two different types of ways that you can actually file. In addition to TS Plus and TS Standard, there are two types of what we call filing bases that we have. One basis is that you are already selling your product and you are using that particular mark in commerce. And so you are already in business, you have products that are sold, or you are already advertising that, or you are already using your services. You can file what's called a Section 1A use in commerce filing. The other way that you can file is an intent to use. And an intent to use means that you are reserving your mark to be used in the future. So if you are in the process of setting up your company, and let's just say that maybe you don't have your seed funding yet, or you are in the process of securing funding, but you do know that you want to reserve that name, or you want to reserve that particular symbol that you want to use associated with that product or with the name of your business, then you can actually reserve your mark and claim that you have an intent to use. And so you'll have to file a couple of renewals every 6 months. But once you actually start to use your intent or your mark in commerce, you start to sell your product, or you've started your actual business, then you can convert that into a 1A use in commerce actual application. And what you do is you just file a statement that you are starting to use that, and then you'll have to show an example of how you are filing that, okay, or using that, excuse me. So next slide, please. So, all right, so you've gotten all your paperwork together and you've actually submitted it to our office. So what happens next? There's a number of things that actually happen. So once you actually submit the application into our office, it'll get into the hands of a trademark examining attorney who will begin the review of the actual application. What they'll actually do is they will go through our database and they will look for products that could potentially, or marks, excuse me, that could potentially cause confusion. And we will talk about that in more detail in a minute. And so the ultimate test of determining whether you can get a mark or not get a mark is if someone is going to be confused about who the source or the provider is of that product or good. And so if there's any sort of confusion across the board, then you will likely be rejected for an application. And so the examiner is looking for that, and there's a number of different ways that they are searching to be able to identify whether there's going to be confusion. They're going to look through your goods and services and identify all of those things, and then they will actually be sending you a rejection or a approval of your mark, and you'll be doing some correspondence back and forth with our office, depending on what the trademark examining attorney finds. Okay, so next slide, please. So when they're looking at the likelihood of confusion, there are two things that they're going to be testing, a two-part test. One is they're going to look at the mark itself. And so they're going to look to see if it appears the same, right? If you have the Starbucks mermaid, and let's say there is another symbol that is very close, and instead of a mermaid, let's say it is a chipmunk. Okay, or it is a male mermaid, for example. So they'll look at that and then they'll say, hey, is it close enough in appearance to the other Starbucks mermaid? And then make a determination on whether it's going to be likelihood of confusion if someone were to look at that and to say, hey, is that being provided by Starbucks or is it being provided by someone else, right? So they'll look at that. The other thing that they're going to look at is they are going to say, hey, if it's just pure words, does it sound the same? And so, for example, if you are using the word write with a W as you are writing, and then it is in a particular font, it's in a particular color, and it has, and then there's another word that's right next to it, but you're using the word right as in, you know, going right. If it's in the same line of goods or services, then it probably will be similar enough, because when someone says it, you're not going to necessarily know whether it's the right with the W or right, you're turning right at the stop sign, right? So they will likely say, hey, there may be some confusion on that. Same thing with misspellings. Okay, so even if you have something that you have misspelled, it may look different in appearance, but it might sound the same when someone actually says it. So it might cause some sort of likelihood of confusion. That's something that the examiner is actually going to be considering across the board. Okay. The other thing that they're going to look at is, are they in the same lines of goods or services? So if I am Nike and I am selling I know that I'm selling sports equipment, I am selling sports related apparel. Okay, so those are things that I sell as Nike. And then I am another business that I am starting up, and I want to use the Nike swoosh symbol and maybe even the name Nike. Not sure, but I am in the computer business. Okay, one of the tests that we're going to look at is, yes, it may be the same mark, but they are in completely different lines of goods or services. And so because they're in different lines of goods or services, then yes, you might be able to get that mark, because someone who is buying a computer service that is, or computer goods, is not likely going to think it's the same Nike company that is providing my tennis shoes or my tennis racket. Okay, so completely different. Now, Nike is actually a bad example in this particular case, because Nike is one of the most famous, if not the most famous mark across the entire world. And so when you get to that status, it doesn't matter which line of goods or service you're coming in at, you're not going to be able to get Nike. But if it's not something that is at the famous level, then you, just because you have the same mark, doesn't mean that you couldn't be able to secure the rights to it if you're in a different line of goods or services. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, and I'm actually going to speed this up a little bit, since I recognize that I want to leave some time for Q&A and also for Christine to finish up. So there's a number of different areas that different types of marks that you get. If you go from right to left, generic to fanciful, that chart that you see there, or that line, when you move from right to left, the mark becomes stronger and it is easier to get that particular mark. Now, a generic mark, so for example, the name printer, or the famous case about Xerox, right? So for a while, Xerox is known as a photocopier, or just making a photocopy. I would make a Xerox. If those names become generic, then it's used in everyday language. You cannot get a trademark on that. Okay, but as you move up from descriptive, suggestive, and fanciful, then you are more likely to be able to get a trademark, and your mark ends up being stronger because everyone knows who is actually providing that. So if we go to the next slide, please, here's a couple of different types of marks. Some marks are suggestive, in which it talks about the intended or desired effect of the good, so like copper tone, dry foot, and ever ready. But a stronger mark on the scale of strength is marks that are actual words that are not associated with a particular good or service. So for example, apple. It's not the actual fruit, right? But we all know that Apple provides our phones, computers, number of different things like that. Same thing with Gap and BlackBerry. Both of them are actual words in the American language, but they are not associated with the actual good or service, and so they're considered arbitrary. The last one is fanciful, and so I listed Xerox on here. It is an invented word, and they did a huge campaign, and they were able to get out of the generic category. And so, but in general, these are not things that you would typically see in everyday language. They are invented words, and so they're considered fanciful marks. Okay, let's move on, and let me skip down a couple of slides and go down to the timelines. The only thing I'm going to mention on the slide right before Christine is that make sure you are paying attention to your deadlines. There are a lot of deadlines, and if you miss the deadline to appeal or do anything else, but make sure you're paying attention to deadlines. Most of the deadlines are in a 6-month time frame, and so just make sure that you're responding accordingly to our office. Let's go to slide 30, or the next slide. The next slide tells you that after you register your mark, you receive your actual registration, you do need to continue to renew it at certain time frames. And so the first renewal is between the 5th and 6th year after your registration. And then after that, it starts at the 10th year, and you renew every 10 years after that. And the requirement for you to continue to renew is that you are actually using it in commerce. Okay. All right. So let's move down to the next slide. Let's keep going to slide 32. If you want to get a step-by-step procedure on how to apply for our application, our USPTO website has some great resources that will walk you through the videos. And so just wanted to point that out. And if we go to the next slide, please, we also have a number of other resources online. So please use our uspto.gov website. As Christine said, lots and lots of information. My last slide is the next one. We do have a 1-800 number. And so if you do have questions and you have difficulty with filing your application, or you just wanted to follow up on some of the information we shared, please feel free to call our 1-800 number. All right, Christine, now back over to you.
Thanks, Hope. Oh my gosh, I don't know about you all, but I just learned so much. So Hope is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to trademarks. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about some other resources that are maybe a little less specific to trademarks, but just things that are available to you. The USPTO has a patent pro bono program. And there are some qualifications that you have to meet in order to use the Patent Pro Bono program, but it's really a fantastic resource if you do meet these qualifications. And this little map shows the pro bono organizations across the country. There are not organizations in every state, but in states that are less populated that may not have an organization, they will be served by nearby organizations. So you're probably wondering more about Texas. And in Texas, the Pro Bono program is supported by the Texas Accountants and Lawyers for the Arts, so the TALA Patent Pro Bono program, located in Austin. And there is some information here with a contact email as well. Okay, we also support law school clinics. So the law school clinics are just win-win, and a good thing for you to know about. So the USPTO's Law School Clinic Certification Program allows law students that are enrolled in law school to actually get experience drafting and filing patent applications or trademark applications for clients under the supervision of a faculty member. So you as a business would have the advantage of the experience of the supervisor, and the student has the advantage of getting experience. So like I said, total win-win on that one. The Law School Clinic Certification Program exists all over the country. These are the locations, and you can see that there are 4 schools in Texas that participate, and they are Baylor, South Texas, Southern Methodist, and Texas A&M. So really fabulous resource for you. Another great resource that is nationwide that the Patent Office is very happy to present is the PTRC, which is the Patent Trademark Resource Centers. So PTRCs are found in public, state, and academic libraries. And these libraries are designated by the USPTO to help give out information on patents and trademarks and support the intellectual property needs of the public. So you can see all over the place we have these PTRCs. And if you go to uspto.gov again, /PTRC, then you can find this map and find the PTRC that's nearest to you. Okay, that's all we have. And I think we did leave some time for questions. So excited to hear your thoughts and your questions. We want to thank you. And I guess while I'm going through resources, here's our information, and we also are a resource for you. So there's our email, phone number, and again, taking you back to uspto.gov. So I really hope that you learned something today and have enjoyed our presentation. We're looking forward to continuing this relationship with Richardson IQ and with you all, and supporting you in your patent and trademark needs. So thank you so much. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. There we go. And turn it back over.
Thanks so much, Christine. That was, and Hope, thanks so much. That was a lot of great information. And I just want to remind everyone that we're recording this and we'll post it to the Meetup site, and we'll post the presentation as well. I know it was a lot to absorb, so you may want to take a listen again, but fabulous. So yeah, we do have some time. Great job wrapping everything up in time for some questions, because I'm sure we've got some. So folks, if you want to unmute and Chris, I see you unmuted quickly. Do you have a question?
I guess I could use.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, you put me on the spot, but yes.
I'm sorry.
So I'll just give an example of one of the trademarks that we have currently. So, and it's my question's in regard to specificity. So, for instance, I have the logo Maestro, which is a common word. But I have it, for instance, in class 35. How strict is it in terms of the classes in terms of specificity of use. Like I have it registered 1, but sometimes the classes get a little nebulous, and I want to be careful because I do have a fairly common word that is trademarked about not infringing in other people that may have it in other classes. So do you have any guidance there? Because that can get a tricky situation sometimes.
It can, it really can. And I think one of the things that you can probably do is to do a search of that particular mark, Maestro, in our systems to see where else it's being used. Are you if you are using it outside of, and I am not familiar with what is in each class, so I have to actually look it up. So let's say it's you want to use class 38 or 40, for example. All right. Maybe do a search in there to see if someone has that particular word that they are being used. So a couple of things to keep in mind. So Maestro, is your mark the word itself? Is that specifically, or do you have a design that's associated with it that, like, for
this one is stylized, and I have others, trademarks that are just the word. But my question is kind of around because some of the categories are a little bit nebulous, and some right, and so and that's really my question, is because some of the categories are a little bit vague. You know, what's the best practice so that you don't make somebody else mad that has it in another class?
I mean, the easiest, like I said, is just, you know, looking to see if someone else has it in that particular class, right?
Yeah.
Any more details that in that particular class, you'll just have to get someone to really analyze it and see how close you really are at that point in time. So if you have a stylized mark, for example, and someone else has the same word, Maestro, but stylized differently in a different class, then or they have a logo associated with the word Maestro that they're using in a different class, then, you know, you'll have to ask the question, is there, if someone were to look at your word and your goods, is someone going to confuse it with someone else's goods or services? So, but at that point, you're kind of really making a legal determination, right? And so you'll have to kind of ask an attorney at that point in time, exactly how close are you?
And that's really my question, is because some of the categories are very similar in use, and so sometimes the vagaries kind of frighten me a bit. So I usually do consult with our attorney on a lot of this, but just wanted to know some best practices to kind of stay in the straight and narrow.
Very good. Good idea.
I hope. I want to kind of tail on that. So I came up with a brilliant name for a game controller, and it starts with the letter E followed by a common word. And in my initial search, and I do have an IP attorney, they found that there's an automotive company that's kind of in there. It's not in the same class, but in their descriptions they say you can, you know, it includes control. So they were just telling me that the trademark office may allow my trademark and there may be no objections, but later on they could come along and say, no, this is confusing or infringing. So I'm sort of dissuaded from taking that name, which I think is brilliant.
The trademark that owns the mark. So yeah, I think that is, I mean, that's going to be a real question, right? So control could be interpreted as electronics, right? Even though they are automotive. And so the question really is, at the end of the day, is the owner of the other mark going to come after you to say that, hey,
it's confusing to their customers?
So if there's a way for you to make us breaking in and out, if there is a way for you to slightly change it, I mean, you're attorney should be able to
Mm.
give you some ideas on whether you can stylize it differently, maybe put a logo with it or something else to
Okay.
make it differentiated. Ask your attorney to see if there's a way to differentiate yours to reduce that confusion. They may be able to, they should be able to provide that.
Okay, great. That's good to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions for Hope or Christine?
Hope or Christine, what effects have the pandemic had on your processes and timelines, if any?
That's a really good question. Actually, our so from a pandemic standpoint, our operations, we're fully 100% operational right now. And so we haven't had any issues because the majority of our workforce, 90% of our workforce was already teleworking. And so we just needed to get the remainder of the group in that particular situation. I think what's been interesting is just seeing our filing rates, and in particular, trademarks. And trademarks, in case y'all don't know, is an indicator of how the economy really is doing. So if there's a lot of trademark filings within our office, the economy tends to be doing really well. And so when the pandemic first hit last year, March, we saw a huge dip in our filings on trademarks. And so it really didn't come back around until probably the May timeframe when we started seeing filings come back up, which I think was an indication that some of the businesses were starting to open back up. We had record filings in the month of September, in case you're wondering. And at that point, up until this last month, September was record filing month, highest number of applications ever in our history of filings on a single day. And then we had last month even more filings across the board. And so we actually are behind. I'm not going to lie to you, because we haven't seen this influx, but it's not because of the pandemic per se or our working at home. It's just because there's a lot of filings coming in on the trademark side. And so it is just a lot of work, which I think is great for our economy across the board.
That's good news.
I'm going to address it just super quickly as an employee who's working on the patent side. There was not even a blip. So like Hope said, most of our workforce works at home. I did not. I was still on campus in an office because I prefer that. It was a less than 12-hour turnaround to be working at home. No problems at all. Our dockets remained the same. Our timelines remained the same. Nothing changed. So business as usual at the patent office.
Now, what I can say is that we did do a number of things to make sure that we were touchless. And so we went through our entire operation to see what we needed to do to change our rules and regulations to make sure that we could accept e-signatures, that everything could be filed electronically. We were more liberal on the type of filings electronically, because not everyone had access to a scanner. You know, sometimes they had to take a picture and then send that in. And so we did go through all of our systems to try to make that easier for everyone.
That's great. Thank you. I had one question come through chat. Is myuspto.gov where we check to see if a trademark is actually registered?
So myuspto.gov is actually a personal account. So if you do file an application with us, then that is your way of seeing how your own account is operating. If you go to uspto.gov, take out the word my, okay, and you can go in there and go into the trademark applications and trademark registrations section. There is something that'll pull up, and it will show you all the applications that are registered with our office. It's just a Boolean search, so you can go in there, type it in, and then you can do a search that way.
Great, thank you. Well, again, thanks to the USPTO team. This was great information. As a reminder, they will be back, although perhaps not the same group, but we'll have the USPTO team back on May 27th for another in our ongoing series of programs from them. And Doug has posted information on our next IQ Brew, which is Thursday, May 13th, and at 9 a.m. featuring Arun Gupta. So I need to let everyone know that we've had some challenges with the one-on-ones thanks to technology. So those of you who requested the one-on-ones, if you'll send me your email addresses, we will get something scheduled for you as soon as possible. Okay. And did I hear a question?
Beth, what is your email address?
Sure, it's beth@richardsonchamber.com.
Thank you.
So on that note, thanks again for your participation and your time. And we look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks and hopefully in person in the near future. Bye all, have a great day.
Bye.
Hey, Beth.